So I'm about to get annoyed. I am trying to record a video, and this is the second computer, the second time that my audio has not recorded, but it's recording now. I don't want to record this over. It's not going to kill me. So I'm going to do it over. So, anyway, all right. So I was just on with my sister Donna, real life relationship growth. It was a dope conversation with some dope people. It was a third part of a series, I will say. The first one I was on 2 weeks ago, when a man goes silent. I didn't catch last week with the women, but this week was a follow up with the men and the women. Now, I want to touch on a couple of things. And the one thing that I want to touch on is I was asked, what makes a man shut down? And my response was confidence. And I said confidence because that is one thing that causes people to shut down. Now, someone in the comments kind of, threw a question mark out there as to why. I did not grow up in an environment where expressing yourself was promoted, I'll say. There was a lot of negative energy around me, whether it was physical, emotional, mental, or whatever. Again, I'm not going to say I was horribly abused. That was not the case. However, my point is I was not in an environment where, expressing yourself was just that thing to do. So I didn't. And I carried that for a long time, throughout, you know, elementary school, middle school, high school, uh, not joined the army, just throughout life. And, at some point, I really started to get over it. I'm not going to say I'm completely over it. I still have my faults, but that's where that confidence thing came from. So when it came to conflict, a lot of times, like now, I don't like to argue. If I have to argue with you, then that relationship is, on the down slope. But my point is, when I got into certain conflicts, I would shut down because I did not have the confidence to speak up, speak out. Not saying that I was soft or anything. It's just that there was just conflicts that I didn't want to engage in. Um, so that's where that point came from when I was asked about that. I went into more detail in the live, so you have to check that out. I will link the card somewhere up here and put it in the description for you to go check out. The other thing, okay, so I made 7 points from that live. So the first one was the quote of the live that was, just boom, right out there. And that one is learn your person. Now, me being a poet creative, I took that two ways. I'm going to tell you the way that it was meant and how I took it, and then how I also took it, just being observant in life. So, how it was meant was you learn your person that way when conflicts come up or anything, where your partner is at. You know where your person's at. You know your person. And with that knowledge, the two of you can get through a situation, whether it be for the better or for the worse, but you still get through that situation because you took the time to invest in knowing this person. So that's where you are with that relationship. The second way I look at that is know your person so that you know if that is the person for you. We all have this thing in life where we deal with people and there are things about that person that we may not like, but we blow it off thinking it'll get better. But we're going to look at the positive aspect of that. You know your person so that you can build a greater foundation with that person. That's what that quote was meant to be. I just looked at it from another perspective where, hey, and this could be a positive as well. If you know that person, know your person, then you know if that person is for you or not. And you know what you need to do for you and that person. Because knowing that person, you may not be the person for that person. So it's very important for you to know the person that you're dealing with. The second point that I want to bring up is great conversations take a long time to unpack. No point could be fully understood in short bites. Now, what I meant by that, as we were having our conversation, I was reading the comments. And we all were, fully engaged in what the other was saying so that we can, respond, give our point of view on it, our perspective, and anything like that. Here's the thing that comes up with that. When you are on a panel and you get 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes to speak, whatever it may be, you are giving people a snapshot of what your experience is on a particular topic or a particular situation. And you're not going to be, you're not in a position or a place where you can just go on and on, because you have to be respectful of other people's time and their ability to get, express what they're thinking. So that's one part of it. And then when you're in the audience and you're listening and you're responding to, you're responding in real time to what someone is saying. When you respond, you're responding to that small bite of what that person was saying. And then as that person is continuing to talk, then you may get more information. Or that person may circle around to that later on in the segment. And that is what happened with me. When I said the confidence thing, I didn't go into further detail in it, but I had the opportunity to speak further on it. And I spoke more on it. Did the audience fully grasp what I was saying because I, spoke on it early and then went back to it later? I don't know. But that's my point. Those small bites, you're not going to, you know, you're not going to fully understand or comprehend the whole stance on it. And especially if it's a good conversation like we were having. The conversation was great. It was phenomenal. And, there were so many points that were made that were so good where I just had to listen to understand. I could not listen to respond to everyone because I am taking in so much great information that I just absorbed it. And, there were times where people, you know, commented on things that I said, and I responded to, gave them dialogue, back and forth dialogue. And it's a great time when you can have a conversation like that. But the whole point of this one is when you're in situations like that, you're not going to fully grasp what that person, well, not grasp, you're not going to be able to fully comprehend the totality of what they're saying because you're taking these small bites. And then when this person says something, then to jump into the next person and you just respond to that, what this person said over here, and you heard something from the next person, you trying to get that. So that's what I mean by that. The third point is that I got from this conversation is every person's journey is a result of the tools and equipment they've been given. Why I pulled that out of the conversation is because, again, I was never around solid relationships. I was around a whole bunch of stuff, okay? So I didn't have the mentoring, I didn't have the guidance, I didn't have the any of those things that I needed. Like I saw domestic violence. Again, I was, treated a certain way. So Now, let me pause right quick. Those things that I grew up witnessing, I did not carry those with me. No. But it did shape how I maneuvered in relationships. As I say all the time, I was a horrible husband at times. Um, and I attribute that to what was in front of me growing up. So I wasn't shown certain things. I'm not saying that I could not have learned. I'm just saying that, hey, as we maneuver through life, the tools that we are given or that we pick up when we're going through, that's what we have. And it takes time for us to come into a place to where we say, you know what, I saw this when I was younger. That's not where I'm going to be when I get older. So that was my whole point with that. The fourth point that I want to make that I took from the conversation is a person's current place in life comes with growth or lack thereof. We all are in a place in our life. Where we are, it comes with whatever growth that we have come with along the way because, hey, we saw growth as beneficial and that's what we needed. However, there are lots of people, yeah, even I experienced times of no growth or stagnation. It wasn't beneficial to me or anybody else. But that's on the individual person. So when you are maneuvering through life and you get to certain points, then you are able to grow. You should grow. Why not grow? Every day that you are able to experience life is a day that you have the opportunity to grow. And growth is important. It's very important. And again, I need you to go check out that live so that you can, fully understand what I'm saying with this stuff. The fifth point that I picked up, and this was something that was said in the chat a lot about grace. You got to give people grace. You got to give people grace. My thing is this: grace is earned, it's not freely given. And I say that in this context. Are you going to keep giving someone something for free if they take advantage of it? No matter what it is. It could be your time, it could be your money, it could be your body, it could be food, it could be your car, it could be anything. Are you going to keep giving that to them if they don't appreciate it? If they take advantage of it, if they abuse it? Your kindness for take your kindness for weakness. Are you going to keep being kind? I'm not saying be mean, but there's this thing of accept people where they are. You can accept them where they are and you can leave them where they are. Because if they're not beneficial to you, why keep dragging them on and on and on with you? So that's how I look at grace. Now, I got pushback on that because this is something that I actually said in the comments and I got pushback on it. And I would love to debate this person on this because, again, you have to look at it from where you are in life. And for me, I just can't give someone grace if they don't appreciate it, if they don't respect it. Because then it's like fool me once, shame on me. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. No, I can't just give grace freely like that. That's just no, I cannot do that. Again, some people may take this to a religious standpoint. What would Jesus do? Jesus this, God this, and I'm not there with that because I am human and giving grace to someone who does not deserve it or appreciate it affects me in real time. In real time. I can see if someone doesn't appreciate, that. So that was that one. So the next one, we forget the inherent resilience that we have in us. So this is something that had come up frequently in the conversation about how, people go through things and they're torn up about it and this, that, and other. Look, let me tell you something. And this is the example that I always use when it comes to this. When you were little, you may have fell, scraped your knee, bumped your head, cut a finger on something, lost a toy, lost some money. $2 was everything when you was little. You might have lost some money. You might have been to the store with your parents and you wanted a toy or some candy. They was like, no, you better not ask me for nothing or I'll beat you, whatever the case may be. And you thought the world was over. You thought the whole world was over. But ironically, the world wasn't over. You actually survived. And then, however length of time that went by, you forgot about that. You moved on to the next thing. That's that inherent resilience that, for some odd reason, we forget about it as we get older and start getting into relationships and start doing adult things like paying bills and things like that. We forget that we have been through so much from the time we can remember to the time we don't want to be doing certain things, that we kind of forgot that inherent resilience, and it affects us mentally, emotionally, financially, and physically, and all that stuff. So that was that point. So the last point that I want to make is that during the conversation, and I wanted to jump in on when she said this, when Donna said this, she said someone texted her and said that we were off topic. Now, when you're having a conversation and you have a plan for the conversation, it's going to go in different directions. It is almost impossible to have a conversation of that type and stick to certain things. Like, we didn't have an agenda. So the conversation was just going. And as you're having conversations, especially when it comes to relationships, you're going to go in different areas. It's without saying. So for someone to say, "Hey, you're off topic," it's like, no, we're not off topic. Like she said, I'm not off topic. We are where we need to be. And that was true for the conversation. You just cannot pigeonhole a conversation when it comes to relationships and expect that to be okay. And that's part of the problem with communication overall. And I'm guilty of this, I will admit. So that is a key point in communication, is that you have to let the conversation go where it's going. You can't just stick to what you want to talk about, what you think you should be talking about, because that is unfair to the conversation overall. But at the end of the day, you do have to understand, excuse the alarm. I mean, but anyway, yeah, so when you're having a conversation, you have to be receptive. You have to be open minded and let that conversation flow and go where it's going to go. Because what's going to happen is, if you try to hold that person in a little box in a conversation, it's going to come back around to you. And you can't get mad if that person puts that back on you, throws that in your face. But anyway, that's all I have. Look, time's been rough. I had a plan to be recording every day. It's not working. So I'm not going to say I failed. I'm not going to say I slacked. Look, life happens. And that's what life does. So I don't know what I'm going to do with the footage that I recorded over the last few days. I might edit it, post it, might not, might do whatever. But look, the whole point, don't stress. You know, sometimes time does not afford you the opportunity to do everything that you want to do. What you can do in those situations is keep moving forward. That's all you can do. And I will catch y'all in the next one. Peace.